Good, let's see, I think we are live. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this morning's live stream. I'm just trying to actually pull up the video so I can see if you can see me. Really? Did you really reverse camera? Okay, hold on, guys. I hate doing this alone without anyone. My camera literally decided to reverse and put itself the other way after I specifically set it. It's not this way. Technology. Okay. Okay. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to warn you that this is probably going to end up moving violently because my tweeny kittens are in fine form this morning. So at any point during our live stream, if you have questions, please pop them in the chat. I will be keeping an eye on that. It's here to my side, and I will be answering them. So this morning we have kind of like Christmas morning for me because I have received several shipments, actually, well, two, several's more than two. One from Armour and Castings and one from Todd Cutler. And I don't even remember what is in these because I've been sick with RSV for weeks and it's been a while since I received this. So let's open this up and see what we have in here. Now, Armour and Castings is one of my official sponsors, and they are a wonderful company. They are jewelry makers, replica medieval, well, replica historical jewelry makers. They are based out of Ukraine, and they've continued producing all throughout this war. So very impressive. And they produce very high quality items. For instance, this collar that I'm wearing now. And I do receive some hate from fellow reenactors and practitioners of living history who claim that a woman wearing a kirtle should not also be wearing a collar this glorious. But to that I say nonsense. I am at home in my private apartments and I am dressed casually, but that doesn't mean that I can't wear a little bit of bling to dress up my kirtle. And I think that is a perfectly fine and authentic practice for a 15th century countess. Anyway, so first I have this box here. Let's see what's in this little box. Ooh, wow. Okay, so I don't even remember ordering this. So this is a brooch, and it is a replica of a late 15th century brooch of a Burgundian type. And it comes with this dangerous looking but beautiful pin that is capped by an acorn head, actually. I could really hurt someone with this thing. And on the back are two rings so that you can affix this to, say, a hood. Oh, I should have grabbed my silk hood, my mitre. And you can then affix it, say, fetchingly, to the lapel of your hood, or maybe directly onto your hat, whatever kind of hat you may be wearing. We do see in the country, so this is not contrary to modern aesthetics, thank you Victorians, in which men should be seen wearing jewelry like this. In the 15th century, men wore items like this. So by a man, this brooch could be also worn on his cap, whatever sort of hat or headdress he may be wearing. Worn possibly if he's wearing a hood, it would be earlier 15th century though. The cowl of a hood, you could wear it there. You see it there as well. So these sorts of items, and actually many of one of the booty, booty meaning spoils of war, the Burgundian spoils that were part of Charles the Bold's treasure train when he went into battle against the Swiss in 1477 and then died. And then all those Swiss mercenaries collected all of his things and took them back to Switzerland. And sketches were taken of many of the items, drawings, really nice, actually, in many cases, watercolor paintings were done of all of the jewelry that was, not all, much of the jewelry in train, his baggage train. And so you can actually, even though the gems themselves or the jewelry themselves didn't survive because often they were melted down and then the gems repurposed and then the metal repurposed into a more fashionable bit of jewelry, you can still see what they originally looked like thanks to these sketches. And sometimes these jewels actually end up in the illumination of 15th century manuscripts, later 15th century manuscripts especially. So if you look in the illuminated and see set jewels like this, as to give you an idea of what jewelry looked like in the period, because as I said, not much of it survives. It often ends up getting, following decades or subsequent centuries, it gets melted down and the jewels repurposed and the gold repurposed for others. Anyway, it is quite nice. The pearls all the way around, and then pearl inset, and then I'm assuming this is a glass stone, as I certainly did not commission something with garnets or rubies, inset in a nice gold setting. And this one is gilt, so technically it's electroplated, but the effect is more or less the same. Electroplating tends to be a little more permanent than gilding. Okay, well that's piece number one. If there's a way I can table. Okay, well, we also have another little box. So let's see what's in this box. And if you are watching, don't forget to hit the like button. Hit the thumbs up, please. Oh, wow. Okay, this is a stunning, stunning piece. I'm glad we did it in this order. So this piece, my goodness. So the back of this one is plain. The back is not. So on this brooch, front and back are stunning. Wow, that is quite some beautiful detailed work. So this is, I'm pretty certain, one. It's a copy of one that we see of hers on one of her hoods. And this is a really gorgeous piece. I actually have another of her gems, her brooches here. This one I already had, and this is a new one to add to this collection. So my hoods are about to get even more delightfully sophisticated and fancy in their nature. It's beautiful. And there, the inset rings are edges, and then a gem inset in a really gorgeous setting. And unfortunately, I really need to improve my knowledge of settings because I don't really know the names for any of these kinds of things. So if you do, please do pop it in the comments. Yeah, wow. So that will be particularly stunning here. And in fact, it kind of brings out the blue, the shade of blue here matches the shade of blue in my kirtle this morning. So again, comes with a scary, scary pin that you could use as a weapon of offense or defense, depending on your mood, I guess. And in this case, it would affix, it would hang quite, with a little bit of motion so that when I move, slight motions would cause light to glint off of the gold and off of the jewels and off of the enameling. So you'd have that effect. And if you imagine firelight, so candles, chandeliers, oil lamps, and the effect that would have on this kind of piece, which is completely different from modern electrical lighting. It would actually be really stunning to see a lady or a gentleman wearing an item like this, in a literal sense of the word stunning, awe-inspiring. So it's a bit of propaganda, right, to show your power in an almost emotional, psychological sense. Oh, that's really it's really beautiful. Thank you, Armour and Castings. So I did know that this box was going to contain rings. What I didn't know is what kind of rings. And so I spent the morning brushing up on my knowledge of the uses of medieval rings and ancient rings. And the uses were myriad. And, people often ask questions like, this looks like a Posie ring. Okay, so here we have, I'll get to the sentence I was about to finish, I was about to say in a moment. And here is a Posie ring. And Posie is a corruption of the word poesy, poetry, from the French, poésie. And that's because a Posie ring, it's not a, you know, not a flower, not that kind of Posie. It is a ring that has an inscription on it, some sort of little bit of poetry. And Posie rings had a multitude of uses, not just between lovers, but a Posie ring could be given between to form another king with some sort of inscription that was symbolic of their political union, not their marital union, although marriage is also obviously a form of political union. And apparently people would actually, you know, it was kind of the skill of a courtier. One of the skills was to be able to divide Posie nations for rings. And this one says Armour, which is love. Amour me tient. Love holds me. So that's actually quite appropriate. It's got this beautiful setting on it. I'll try to get really close. My camera lenses don't swap. It's got this really beautiful setting. And I actually think I can maybe I'm going to try to bring this closer. Okay. It has this really beautiful setting. And hypothetically, this could be a diamond. Diamonds actually, the earliest recorded use of a diamond, I think, was actually ancient Rome. But apparently, I'm going to apologize for any weird random noises you hear. Those are the tweenies wreaking havoc in the apartment. Anyway, apparently Romans prized diamonds for their hardness, not so much for their durability, not so much for their shine, right? And the earliest recorded diamond wedding ring that I could find was a will, an English will from 1417. A diamond, it was described as a diamond wedding ring. So that, so that this could possibly be that wedding ring. Yeah, it's quite beautiful. Let's see. Oh, it fits. So these were all different sizes. And in medieval practice, rings can be worn on any finger, not necessarily a wedding or a betrothal ring, a wed, as the original word in Old English means. But you will see people wearing rings on all fingers, on thumbs, on index fingers, middle finger, what we call the ring finger, pinky, right? And sometimes you'll see them actually worn over top of gloves. The way you sometimes see actually starlets in the 20s, 30s, and 40s wearing rings on top of their gloves. So that's really beautiful. Ooh, I like that one. I think I might be keeping that one. Some of these I will be giving to as prizes and giveaways for viewers and for subscribers. Oh, okay. So this one is different from this in that it's not a gem. It's kind of it looks like an insignia ring, actually, a sigil ring. So it actually is pretty broad, and it has some really nice detail work. These fine beadings here. You actually see this style of gold work still if you go to places like Malta. They are still doing this kind of silver work, actually, with these really fine annealed pieces, although these might be cast. But the band itself is really quite elaborate with twists, sort of like twists and kind of beading going around it. A little bit big for that finger. It fits on my middle finger though. And yeah, this looks like it could be used as a seal ring for actually pressing into a signet ring, as it were, for pressing into wax to seal something. There are a couple of letters and then what looks like scissors, actually. I'll have to actually look into that and see what that's an original of, a replica of. Aha. So we talked about weddings. Oh, right. So I'm going to take a moment to look at the comments. I did promise I would keep an eye on them. Sound is cutting in and out. Okay, hold on a minute. So I had a theory that because this microphone uses Bluetooth, we're going to go to the native sound. I had a feeling that because that microphone uses Bluetooth, that there's something interferes between the Wi-Fi and the Bluetooth, that there was an interference. Okay, so is audio? It's probably going to be lower quality. It's probably going to be more echoey. But can you all hear me now, or more solidly? I guess. No, I should have kept a closer look. Yeah. Oh, you just reminded me to put a pin in my hat for tomorrow. Yes. Uh, yeah. So I actually have living history pro tip. I actually have a booklet of pins of different sizes that I specifically bring with me to all medieval living history events because I never know when I'm going to need a pin for a purpose. So that I just have all the different kinds of pins I could need, different sizes, different gauges. Yeah. Unfortunately, yeah, the volume is going to be low because unfortunately it's the native microphone on my camera. The best I can do is bring it closer. But I'll have to try to figure out if there's a way I can get around the sound cutting in and out because it's charged. It's not a question of charge. I hate technology so much. There's a reason I do medieval living history, and it's not because I like modern technology or appreciate modern technology. So yeah, I guess I'll just try to speak up. That's annoying. I thought that the problems were the lapel mic itself because I have a lavalier that broke, but I bought a new one. But apparently it's not. It's probably something to do with the Bluetooth being interfered with by the streaming on the phone somehow. It could also be the fact that even though Korea has the fastest internet in the world, for some reason, the internet that comes with this apartment is not the fastest and bestest and most broadest band internet in the world. So anyway, back to, oh yeah, I now carry a book of pins since I saw yours. And actually, I have to be honest, the book of pins wasn't my idea. I'm terrible at organizing myself. I have ladies in waiting for that and apprentices. And it was one of my apprentices in waiting who made that booklet for me. It was a wonderful gift and one I appreciate to this day. Authentic, I have no evidence of pin booklets to the 15th century, but it is very practical. And it's certainly better than, keeping a random tin of different or a random box of different size pins. Much more easy to organize them in that cloth booklet. Anyway, back to rings. Right, so we were talking about weddings, and I actually did some reading. I've been doing some reading because I'm going to be doing a more coherent video on medieval rings and their uses. And the use of rings as part of a wedding process dates back to at least the ancient Greeks, although not in the way we do it. In ancient Rome, it was actually the groom gave a ring to the bride's father as a sign of his commitment to the union in advance of the ceremony. But apparently, the ancient Roman ceremony didn't come to use wedding rings as part of the actual wedding ceremony until the 2nd or 3rd century AD. And I say apparently because I haven't found a primary source reference for that. But what we do have to ancient Rome, even though this is a medieval version, in ancient Rome, they definitely also had rings that were two hands joining in some way to indicate the joining of two houses, the joining of two people. And so this is a medieval version of that, and you actually see it on both sides. So you have the two hands holding a heart, each holding half of a heart on the front, and then on the back, you have two hands clasping each other, right? So that's a very interesting and complex ring, and it is a style that dates back to at least ancient Rome. And I was reading up on the medieval wedding ceremony, and apparently, in the starting the wedding, the rite of marriage became a sacrament it was officially declared a sacrament in the 12th century by the church, in the Christian church. Obviously, in Jewish faith or Islam, a whole different Judaism or Islam. It's a whole different ball of wax, and I'm not even going to try to explore that this morning. Although apparently, I think I did read that rings started to be used in the Jewish wedding ceremony in around the year 1000. But I don't have a primary source reference for that, so don't hold me to that. And so, marriage becoming a sacrament in the Western Church in the 12th century means that they start codifying a ceremony that goes beyond people just saying, um, giving literally a wed. And the word wedding comes from the word wed, which means a pledge or a troth, an object that you give to signify your pledge to this marriage. And it didn't have to be a ring, it could be any number of objects. A ring was just one option. And apparently it was the man giving his pledge to the woman. And so in medieval wedding ceremonies and all the rites that I found, which is not many, there were many different wedding rites that kind of evolved over various parts of medieval Europe. But in the ones that I found, it was always the groom giving the ring to the bride, not the other way around. And if you look at medieval depictions, iconography of people getting married, what you will see is generally the bride's hand out and the groom with a ring in his hand, kind of, you can imagine the motion of the ring going towards the bride's finger, and you never see the inverse of the bride offering a ring to the groom. So that seems to have been the medieval practice. Now, what kind of ring it may have been, that's kind of the question. It's much less codified. As I said, I found a reference in a will for a woman who had a diamond wedding ring, but that doesn't necessarily mean that there was a formula for wedding rings in the Middle Ages, and I'll be doing more research into that, so stay tuned. But for certain, this one represents a union, and was most likely probably given from the groom to the bride, based on my understanding. Yep. So rings, just like in the modern world, rings in the Middle Ages and Renaissance can take such a variety of, give myself this one and put it on my thumb, can take such a variety of shapes. Wow, this is sort of like a super fancy version of a stirrup ring. So what I've generally always had are stirrup rings, but this one, look at the detail on that. Wow. And this one, you could use this if you put, wow, yeah, this could be weaponized. I don't know. I'm a very violent person, apparently. I look at all objects as their potential use to either defend myself or stand my ground. Wow, that is quite stunning. So here we have this is a stirrup ring, actually. And this one is definitely of a larger type. It's actually too big for even my thumb. So that will be going to probably most likely a gentleman, because women don't tend to have fingers this big, or to someone with a larger thumb. But here, this is called a stirrup ring, and they have little gems inset into this, it looks like a stirrup, basically. And you see these especially in the 15th century. If you look, there's a very famous Flemish portrait of a jeweler, and he has in one hand a very delicate hammer of the jeweler's trade, and in the other hand he's holding a ring, and it's a stirrup ring, very much like this one. Wow, very nice. Here we also have, so rings, medieval rings, it's not just about the gem and the setting, but the bands themselves tend to be rather elaborate. And often they can have inscriptions on the inside and the outside. This one is not an inscription, though. It is just banding. Oh, no, there is an inscription. Yep, there is an inscription. Yeah, and on the other side, it says Ave Maria. So this is a kind of Posie ring. Again, poesy, the poetry of the ring. And this one is, I mentioned that they could be between a betrothed couple, a groom to the bride, between two rulers. But if it has an inscription like Ave Maria on it, then it was a sign of devotion. So it was a kind of bond between the wearer and, in the the Virgin. Ave Maria, Hail Mary, full of grace, right? Ave Maria, gracia plena, right? And so that is what this ring is. This is a kind of a religious, a Posie ring of faith. This is a ring that illustrates the faith of the wearer. It's very, very lovely. Yeah, the detail work on this. And it is also largish, too big, too small for my thumb, but big enough for my muscular index finger. This is my workhorse finger for most of my crafting, and you can tell because it's got some nice meaty muscle here. So comment, my wedding ring is a clodagh ring, which is similar but more recent ring that includes the hands and the heart. Ah, yes, the clodagh ring is, of course, Celtic, the Gaelic hand fasting ring. Well, people use them often as hand fasting rings, but they show hands very much like this, which I have seen clodagh rings, and with the exception, and this one actually does have the heart. It has the two hands holding the heart half, actually. So you can see how some styles and traditions actually may persevere for centuries. Yeah. So that's pretty interesting. I do like to say though, just because something is traditional doesn't mean that it is medieval. So however, I do find it interesting when I find more modern traditions that have a medieval equivalent that is very, very similar or hardly even changed at all. Because for me, the study of history is about exploring both the differences and the similarities and building a bridge to the past to feel connected. And I don't know why that matters to me, but it does. Okay, now here, I am not familiar with this style of ring. It actually looks like it has astrological symbols around it, so I'm going to have to do some more research into this one. But it is definitely a, very finely crafted ring, very delicate band, broader setting, and fits on this finger. Wow. I feel like, who is there? There's a nursery rhyme. Isn't there about a woman who has lots of rings on her fingers? Yeah, as mine now, I have a lot. So these are all basically going to be, many of these are going to become gifts for giveaways as part of future videos on YouTube. So stay tuned, especially in the video I will be doing on rings. We will be discussing these. So this is a slightly simpler one. And these ones were all electroplated in gold, and this one is not. So this is, I think I saw an original of this morning. This is a 14th century style ring. And it's one of the more common ones that apparently have survived in the archaeological record. And that's probably because I think they were usually not made of gold. And so they didn't end up getting melted down as often. So you have what looks like a sort of 4-petal flower and then a gem in the center. And it's funny, I was speaking of the metal of these things, I read a quote by Pliny this morning, Pliny the Elder, and he was commenting actually on the practice of things as part of the wedding ritual, the wedding process. And what he said was, it was a very, very typical elder statesman complaining about how the youth are dissolute. Anyway, what he says, paraphrasing, in his day, they used to give plain iron rings with nothing upon them as a sign from the bridegroom to the bride's father. But these days, of course, the custom is different. Right? So apparently, originally in the ancient Roman tradition, it was an iron ring, not gold, not silver. But later on, you do start, apparently in the 2nd or 3rd century, you do start to see gold and silver making its way into the archaeological record. Yeah, so in contrast to Pliny the Elder's simple iron ring, we have this stunning piece. Look at the detail on this band. Yeah, this is a really beautiful piece. Oh, and it even has on the inside, oh, so that's pierce work actually. So each of these little medallions here, these 4 medallions, are actually pierced all the way through, which you can't really see on my phone camera, no doubt. Yep. So wow, some really beautiful pieces in here. Okay. Oh, we have one more heart ring. One more heart ring. So another version of hands, 2 hands holding a heart, a crowned heart. Right. And this is another one of these rings that would, could definitely be given from a lover. Could either be a lover's ring, or it could be a bridegroom to a bride. Speaking of bridegroom to bride and wedding symbols, so I did also read about wedding brooches. So this brooch is not necessarily a wedding brooch, but if you've ever seen some of these really elaborate brooches where it's two lovers, basically a gentleman and a lady, that is a wedding brooch. And there's actually a good quote I found, and that'll be coming up in the video I'll be doing on some of these brooches, about the gentleman giving his bride, the groom, the husband giving his wife a brooch as a symbol of their marriage. And so it's not just rings that could be a symbol of a marriage in the medieval mindset, but brooches as well, and specifically the symbol of the brooch as something that closes the woman up. The language that this man uses was actually very specific. Oh, I might still have it open. I might still have that, right, that quote open. Maybe not. I'll have to see. I'll have to find it again. Anyway, the language was very much symbolic of the brooch closing the woman's breast and keeping out lascivious advances and suitors, and closing her off from adulterous feelings that would lead to improper behavior, right? And so the idea of the brooch, and so this is a brooch. This is more of a pendant, really, but the kind of brooch that he's talking about is definitely the kind that would actually be used to close 2 edges of fabric together, because the imagery is very much of closing up the woman and keeping other men out of her bosom. I think he actually uses that sort of phrasing there at some point. So it's not just rings that were given as a sign of the bond of marriage, but brooches as well. And actually the symbolism there is pretty powerful. As for the finger upon which wedding rings were worn. So most of the ceremonies I've found thus far prescribe the 3rd finger of the left hand, not which, actually I'm not certain. It said the 3rd finger, but now that I'm not certain if the thumb counts or not. So if the thumb is not a finger, then this could be the 3rd finger, i.e. the finger. But if the thumb is a finger, then it's the middle finger. So I'll have to look into that a little further. But the idea, of course, some of you have perhaps heard the theory that the reason the 4th finger of the left hand is the wedding band finger is because of this ancient belief that there was a vein that ran from that finger all the way straight to the heart. That is a pre-Christian belief. I think Galen and Ptolemy stated that was the deal, but I'll be doing more research into that for the upcoming video. Okay, is it true that medieval gemstones were not faceted? No. No, I have seen faceted gemstones, absolutely. For instance, the original of this brooch, I'll repeat that question more loudly. The question was, is it true that medieval gemstones were not faceted? No, it is not true. But medieval is a long period, right? So medieval covers 1,000 years. The earlier you go, the less likely you are to see faceted gemstones, in my experience of observing gemstones. But I'll give you a good example of a faceted gemstone. The original brooch on which this one is based is it looks just like this. It is a faceted gemstone. So faceting is something that definitely seems to occur in later medieval jewelry, not in earlier jewelry. If you look at imperial crowns, if you look at the imperial crown that is in Aachen Cathedral, Charlemagne's crown, then you're going to see, not much or any faceted gemstones at all. Actually, it's cabochon style stones, so that sort of the round, smooth cut, or I don't know if that's even cut polished. polished, polished smoothly and roundly. But yeah, no, there are certainly faceted stones. And in fact, some of these are set with faceted stones. Now, granted, you could say it's a replica. Is that accurate? But maybe you can see the faceting on this tiny little stone there. I have definitely seen, you know, extant rings with faceted stones, and as I pointed out, absolutely in these Burgundian brooches, many faceted stones. And in fact, one of the pieces of the Burgundian booty, I could call it the Burgundian spoils, but Burgundian booty is just more fun. I think we can all agree on that. One of the pieces that was part of the Burgundian booty was Charles the Bold's, I'm going to call it his coronet hat, because it's this stunning epitome of the jeweler's and the goldsmith's guild art craft, because it is basically a stylish hat, but it is entirely of gold and gems and pearls and amazing settings, and it had this stunning plume, probably an ostrich plume, coming out of it. It didn't survive, of course, but they did a wonderfully detailed sketch of it that has survived. I'm confident it was melted down and and everything repurposed for other jewelry. But on that hat in the original sketch, there are definitely faceted stones. So yeah, I think the important question when one is asking any about these sorts of details, in what century did they start faceting gems? And I don't have a proper answer for that, but I do know that by the 15th century, jewelers were absolutely faceting gems. Yep, that's a good question. Thank you. Interestingly, of course, gems in the modern world, we often see these websites, health websites, new age health websites that talk about the power of crystals. But this is not a new concept, actually. Hildegard von Bingen apparently claimed that certain gemstones had certain medicinal properties. And she actually prescribes a sapphire to ward off, to rid yourself of wrath. But the way that you should consume the sapphire is not just by wearing it. She actually says it should be set in gold, a gold ring, and you should put it in your mouth. I don't recall if she said how long you should keep it there, presumably not forever. That would be uncomfortable. But she does specify that there should not be any tin in the ring, that it should be made of pure gold, but that if there is anything but gold, that you should not put it in your mouth, for it will not be good for you. So even Hildegard von Bingen knew that tin, which contained lead, was not something you should be putting inside your body, or even on your body. I think she even said that if you put it on your finger, that it will not have the positive effect. But she literally said it will not be good for you if you put it in your mouth. So I thought that was a fascinating little revelation this morning. Okay, oh, there is one more ring. It is another, wow, some of these are really quite stunning. I have to say, the settings on these and the bands on these, you know, everyone talks about, so many people, not living practitioners of medieval living history, we know better, but so many people talk about, oh, how crude the Middle Ages were and how unsophisticated. But you know, when you look at these rings, you cannot say that the Middle Ages was unsophisticated in any way. The details on these bands, the pierce work, the settings for the stones, it really is just quite masterfully executed, right? Well, I have all of these beautiful rings now, and I will be giving some of these away as part of upcoming giveaways on upcoming videos, so stay tuned for that. Moving on, next thing we have is a bag of badges. So a badge, in this sense, is literally that. It's where the word badge comes from, actually. It's an object that you wear on your person to indicate something, to convey meaning and significance. And badges had a multiplicity of uses and purposes in the Middle Ages. So this badge, this interesting little badge, this is the Schweinehund being defeated by the badger. And the badger is the modern symbol of the Ukraine, and the Schweinehund is apparently Russia. So this is a badge that Armour and Castings has created. This is a fundraising badge, actually. If you purchase this badge, they will be donating the proceeds to the war relief effort in the Ukraine. So if you go to Armour and Castings website and you go to the Schweinehund, which is the German word for pig dog, and this is the pig dog, then you can buy one of these, add it to your bling, wear it on your hood, wear it on your hat, some kind of headdress, wherever. On if you have a cowled hood, then you can wear it on the cowl, and then you'll be supporting the Ukraine war effort, or the relief effort in any case. Yeah, so the Schweinehund, actually in German, it's a funny thing about the Schweinehund. German has the expression innerer Schweinehund, which literally means your inner pig dog. And it's like it's your sort of your inner brain weasels that keep you from being a productive person. It's sort of the thing that keeps you lazy and from being productive, right? And so that is the innere, you have to fight your innere Schweinehund in German. It's a pig dog. It's just such a great visual, actually. So badges could be used as a symbol of an allegiance with a cause. And you could have personal badges, and I'm confident we have some of those here. But often you have badges that are pilgrims' badges. So if you went on pilgrimage in medieval Europe, you would go to a pilgrimage site, and the pilgrimage site would have badges that you could purchase. This is a good way to raise funds to keep supporting the site. And then you could wear that badge on your person as a sign that you had been to that place. And badges are actually not called badges, as far as I can tell, in medieval English. They were referred to as signs, as pilgrim signs. You wear the sign of your pilgrimage on your person. And this one is actually a lady playing an organ, which I'm not familiar with this as actually being a pilgrim's badge. So they also had badges that were just decorative or that showed some kind of personal affiliation. This is, for instance, a rose, right? And so this could have been someone's personal badge, the badge of their house, for instance. So, households had badges. The Dukes of Burgundy, one of their badges was the flint, the flint steel for striking a fire. The idea being we are the power behind the throne. We start the fire, the thing that makes man so powerful, right? So every household, every powerful household had a badge, and so the Dukes of Burgundy actually were known for when they went on pilgrimage, they would commission badges of signs, pilgrim signs, from the place where they had gone, and in mass quantity, and they would give them to the retainers in their household. And whether the badge was made of gold, made of silver, was silver gilt, was made of pewter, was made of bronze, which probably would have been called latin in the original sources in English, was indicated by the recipient's rank, because the Duchy of Burgundy was extremely hierarchical. But you actually find these the records of these purchases of badges in the expense accounts. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Okay, so here is a possible pilgrim's badge. Yeah, and trigger for anyone who is offended by human genitalia, but this is the vagina triumphant, being borne aloft on a litter by 3 phallus servants. And you see she is the crowned virgin, or the crowned vagina. And yeah, so medieval people were not prudish. Medieval people just were not prudish in the least. The prudism is actually an invention of the Reformation in Europe. So, these sorts of symbols are in many ways symbols of fertility, and they are holdovers from the ancient world for certain. They just got repurposed, right? So from being signs of pagan worship and pagan fertility to being Christian worship and Christian fertility. Yeah, and these will also be part of a giveaway on the piece I will be doing on badges. Now here is a hawk badge. And I've actually read that this particular badge, the Hawker's badge, was purchased when from a church when the owner of a hawk had a sickly hawk or a sickly falcon, a bird of prey, and they wanted prayers to be said for their the recovery of their bird of prey. And then they would purchase this badge and then they would wear it as a sign that they had done so. It never occurred to me. Of course, I know hawking is a very important part of courtly life, but it never occurred to me that you would actually pray for the recovery of your birds of prey. And this goes along with a treatment I saw it was to heal both, it was a recipe for a medicine that was good for both people and hawks. So, yeah. So let's see. Here is a thistle. And this is also probably a personal badge. And on the back, I'll show you the back. So the back is incorporated. You have these pins incorporated into them. And often on the surviving badges, the pin doesn't necessarily survive. It gets broken off, but you can often see the mounting point for where there used to be a pin. That would, of course, be welded on, soldered on separately. Often soldered, not of course. Sometimes they are soldered on separately, and sometimes they are part of the original casting process. I actually prefer it when they're soldered on separately because then you can solder on a finer pin than you can accomplish if you cast it as one piece. If you cast it as one piece, the pin part tends to be pretty crude and pretty thick, and then you poke big holes in your clothing, which on my silk velvet hood, I'm not excited about poking big holes into it. Yeah. Oh, let's see. Okay. So here is one that could be absolutely this is talking about signs of love. So it goes hands in hand with our ring discussion. This is, of course, a crowned heart, and it says on it, heart be true, heart be true. And so this is most likely a love token. Could have been a token from a groom to a bride or a husband to a wife. Maybe not, though. Maybe a love token from one lover to another, right? As part of that dance of courtly love, or maybe not courtly love, depending on how you look at it. Ooh, this one is interesting. I'm not familiar with this badge. So this one looks a bit like a demon, actually. I will have to look into the history of this one. This looks like a much earlier badge. In style, it definitely has more of a 13th century style to it. I'll have to look into this one. I do know that there is a difference apparently, between English badges and continental badges. One tends to be, the English badges tend to be more of this nature, sort of different shapes and more three-dimensional, whereas the continental badges tend to either be ovular or square, like this in nature. And in the continent, there was a practice actually, because they were not necessarily meant to be worn on clothing, actually, the ones on the continent. There was a practice of actually going back home and sewing, after you came back from your pilgrimage, sewing your badges into your book of hours. And they would sometimes sew them right on top of a page, a fully illuminated page in the book of hours. And there's actually one book of hours where the page of badges has survived. That's how we know this was a practice. And you can only do that if, really, if your badge doesn't have this on the back. Your sign does not have this on the back, and it's much more two-dimensional. So that's an interesting practice. And then in your book of hours, you have this sort of living memory of the places on which you have been on pilgrimage. And of course, some of the more major pilgrimage sites would be Rome, Santiago de Compostela, Jerusalem. But in addition to those major sort of pilgrimage sites of Christianity, of course, are hundreds upon hundreds of other more minor local sites, pilgrimage sites for local saints, for local miracles. So it was certainly not Canterbury, for instance, the Canterbury Tales. And I'm not saying that's minor, that's Thomas a Becket, but he is sort of a more local saint, although as a saint he was known throughout Europe. So, but you know, so it wasn't just Rome or Santiago or Jerusalem that were the big pilgrimage sites. You could go on pilgrimage at a much more local level, and all of those holy sites, all of them had their own badges. So yeah, there's a lot of options out there. Let's see what else I can find in today's unboxing of, because there's so many items in here. Ah, okay, so here is a badge. This one's interesting. This is the Pelican in her piety. To wit, the pelican piercing her breast to feed her young. And this is a symbol, an allegory of Christ, who sacrificed himself on the cross and literally gave his blood for the redemption of mankind, and also sort of a reference to, you know, communion in which the wine was transfigured into his blood. So anytime you see the the pelican in her piety, that is in the medieval mindset, a symbol of Christ, right? Christ the Redeemer, Christ the sacrificial lamb, Agnus Dei, another symbol of Christ. Anyway, yeah, so this one is very nice. Of course, for those of you who are members of the Order of the Pelican, this might be a good option. But some of you might not appreciate the religious aspect of the Christian aspect of it. But anyway, yeah, so the pelican in her piety. And I read that the reason that medieval people thought the pelicans pierced their breast to feed their young with their blood, it's people who didn't actually see pelicans very often. If you look at the way a pelican, you know, eats food, sort of pre-masticates it in their pouch, and then opens their mouth and then their beak, and then the young feed directly out of their pouch, right, with this pre-masticated food, then that could look to the unobservant or uneducated viewer as though the pelican is letting their young feed directly from their heart. So that's a theory as to why that belief kind of took hold, especially from people who maybe lived inland and didn't see pelicans very often and only heard tales of them. Anyway, if you've heard other theories about why medieval people thought pelicans pierced their breasts to feed their young with their blood, do let me know. Okay, so we have, you know, there are so many different kinds of badges. Oh, here's another example of one of those square badges that I mentioned, right? The kind that could be sewn into a book of hours as a memento of your journey. Yeah, so there's, you know, there are just so many different kinds of badges. So many different shapes. You could have them, and of course, lots of fun little naughty bits. I think this one actually might be appropriate for my household. It's a kitty. It's a kitty with maybe a leopard, but some kind of cat running off with a phallus. That seems, if my cats could figure out how to do that, they would. Because they are just ornery. Of course, they've worn themselves out. They're now passed out over there in their respective beds. Oh, Tommy fell asleep, nursing on his blanket, suckling on his blanket. Yeah, so, you know, there's just so many different kinds of, ooh, here's a very militant one, gauntlet and mace. Yeah, very, very militant. There are so many different kinds of badges, and, you know, you could have a badge commissioned that is your own household symbol. Richard III, his badge was the white boar. So this could actually be Richard III's badge. Richard III of England, his badge was the white boar. So if you are a puissant lord or lady and you wish to create a sense of loyalty amongst your retainers, I do recommend having a badge commissioned and give one to your retainers. And of course, gold for your highest level retainers, silver for the next, gilt for the next, then, you know, bronze and pewter in that order to the last two ranks, of course. But everyone should have a badge and should wear it proudly as a symbol of, you know, their affiliation with you. I do have a badge. It is a fleur-de-lis. I didn't think to bring any right now, but none of my badges have been gilt or made of gold or silver. So maybe that's the next step in the Contessa's household. Okay, well, those are, I believe that is everything from my armor and castings box this morning. Quite a lot in that little tiny, I'm trying to arrange things nicely, quite a lot in little tiny box, actually. Let's see if there's anything else hiding there. There's not. So yeah, we have tons of badges. And I will be giving away these badges also as part of a giveaway in my upcoming series on badges, their uses, and their history. Signs, as they are called. So yeah, stay tuned for more of that. Okay, now I did also promise I received a second shipment. This is from Todd Cutler. If you're currently viewing, please do remember to hit the thumbs up. And once this video goes to publishing, if you could just leave a comment or a question under the video, helps boost the video in the algorithms, etc., etc., etc. Oh, my right leg has fallen so asleep. And it's now waking up. Okay. So that's a distracting feeling. So this, I didn't order anything from Todd Cutler. Todd Cutler is a smith, a very skilled smith who works out of England, operates out of England. And you have seen some of his items on my channel before. My eating set with the awl is a Todd Cutler piece. Also, I have a very beautiful penknife from him and a penner. So I actually don't know what's in this roll at all. This was commissioned. This was ordered by my condottiero. And it's been sitting so long that I don't think he even recalls it was ordered. So let's see what is in here. So the item is also very heavy. Oh, I think I know what this is. Ooh. This will go far to enhance the elegance of my table. Oh, I should have brought scissors. So when you order things from both Armour and Castings and Todd Cutler, they do take quite a bit of care to package things in a very diligent and fastidious manner, thereby nothing shall be damaged in the process of shipping. What this means is you might need a sharp edge tool to actually free things from the packaging, and I didn't think to bring a sharp edge tool. In fact, I could have brought the penknife that I have from Todd Cutler. Okay, this beautiful piece, ladies and gentlemen, this is a salt cellar, and this is super elegant. I can't wait to add this to my table, and in fact, I'm the kind of person who will serve salt to my guests from medieval to modern in this piece. This will look really nice on any dining table, whether it's your medieval one or your upcoming Thanksgiving one. So yeah, this is, wow, this is stunning. So if you would like a beautiful salt cellar, I highly recommend going to Todd Cutler's page. This is beautiful. I know he does not sponsor me in any way. I just like his products, and I was kind of excited to see what was in this package because I have no idea. So yeah, coming to a table with the Contessa at some medievalist event near you, this salt cellar will be joining me, and it's very heavy. Again, if in an emergency some rapscallions invade your hall, you could use this to defend yourself. I am just so violent. Why is that my first thought when something is heavy and solid? Okay, moving on from that beautiful salt cellar. And I've actually seen salt cellars like this in medieval cathedral and church treasuries, and I think I've seen one like this in the cloisters, the Metropolitan Museum of Art's Cloisters Museum in Yonkers. So yeah, wow, this is really beautiful. And it also shines. So this will look stunning in candlelight. Okay, yeah, so for those who don't know, medieval tables, a good medieval table had salt served in a cellar like this, and you would use, your fingers to salt your food. But there is a medieval book of manners, the Book of Caring, and I think that's the one that actually specifies that you should actually use your pinky and your thumb to apply salt to your food. And that's because the other fingers are occupied by other things. This finger is for meat, like land mammal meat. This finger is for fowl, and this finger is for fish in combination with your thumb. And then this is for salt, if I recall correctly from that set of instructions. So You should always serve salt at your table. And this is actually why certain people who recreate medieval cuisine claim that you don't cook with salt, that you just add salt at the end, because recipes never call for salt and there's always a salt cellar on the table. I personally don't think that lack of evidence is evidence against. I think that if something is so common, such as adding salt, to taste, then you don't need to specify it in a recipe. Why would you waste parchment time on that, right? Okay, parchment time, parchment space. Moving on to other extremely well packaged objects. Oh my God. Yep. So just know that if you purchase from Armour and Castings or Todd Cutler, that your items will be sent very safely. You can purchase with confidence that there will not be any damage. And this was actually has these huge industrial staples. I had to find a tool to pry them out because I don't have tools like this here. So I had to go and improvise a way to get these massive industrial staples out. So, and you'll see it survived shipping from the United Kingdom through America to Korea in pretty good, completely undamaged. So yeah, that's always impressive. I often get shipments completely destroyed. Ooh, okay. This beautiful piece is a candlestick, and it has two different kinds of candlesticks on it. So you have one for tapers that goes here, or you can actually put a larger pedestal candle on the spike there. And then these legs are hypothetically adjustable, although I'm not certain if there's a way to actually set them. But either way, even if you can't adjust the height, what you can do is you can easily take this with you. I do seem to recall, though, there's something about this that you can actually, maybe that's not this candle, that you can actually stick one of these legs into like a piece of wood, like a wood board or something over this surface on which you're working, and then have candlelight. But that's not this one. That's a different kind of candle holder. But wow, it's stunning. I mean, look at the detail around the stalk there. And of course, it also shines. The nice thing about this is it collapses down, so it makes it really easy to transport, right? So it doesn't take up a lot of room. When you have a mobile household and you're moving around all the time, then you can take things like this with you very easily, which as a countess who travels quite a lot, makes often journeys hither and yon, that is a splendid thing. And it's also very solid and very heavy. Very nice. Now I just need to get little tapers that will fit in there. In fact, I think I might have some beeswax tapers that are that small. I'm not certain what this little piece is for, though. I wonder. I'll have to look that up. Nice. Okay. Apparently we ordered a few of those. So apparently we have 1, 2, wow, we have a lot. We ordered 4 of these. And by we, I mean my condottiero. Okay. Well, apparently that was our Todd Cutler shipment for this time, was a set of 4 of these candlesticks and this amazing salt cellar. I have wanted a salt cellar like this for years and years and years. So this is really going to bring my table to the next level. Okay, that is all I have for you today, everyone. A whole lot of badges from Armour and Castings, and salt cellar, and amazing gems and jewels. For those who are just tuning in, I'll just do a quick recap. This is what came from Armour and Castings today, these amazing pendant brooches, and then many different signs and symbols that you wear on your person, badges as we call them modernly, and of course, all of these amazing rings. Right. I actually read that there were some sumptuary laws in certain places, and again, this was a secondary reference, so I have to find the primary source reference, that there were apparently sumptuary laws that limited the number of rings that certain people could wear in certain times and places. So I'll have to go and check out those sumptuary laws. So all of that fun tidbits like that will be coming in my upcoming series on rings and their uses, and also similar details in my upcoming series on badges and their uses. Will involve giveaways of many of the items shown in those videos. So everyone, are there any questions? I don't even know if anyone is still there. It's sort of hard for me to tell from the screen. Yeah, any questions, any comments? While I give you a moment for your questions to come through because there's a slight lag, I will just say that I am almost done with part 1 of my narrated Dressing the Burgundian Comtesse video, in which I narrate the process of getting dressed and provide information from the perspective of the 15th century Comtesse. So as in presenting everything, all the details I would usually present, but not from a historical perspective, from a contemporary perspective. It's kind of fun. I think you'll enjoy it. Also more information than just the getting dressed video in which we just go through the process visually. So this includes more visuals, more evidence, more documentation, but told, narrated from the Countess's perspective. So I should hopefully going to finish that this weekend. These videos always take longer than I think they're going to. Polished videos, you know, if you see a polished video with actual information worth knowing, probably for every minute of polished video from me is on average eight hours of work, at least minimum for a minute, just from the research and the scripting and the voice recording and the video editing and the filming. 1 minute of good polished video is at least 8 hours worth of work. So yeah. Otherwise, thank you everyone for joining in. You know, once this publishes, please remember to go and hit the thumbs up and you know, leave a comment if you will. And if you want to support my content and work more actively, I do have a Patreon account, The Creative Contessa, and I provide all sorts of extras there depending on your level, digital patterns and extra premium video content, full hour tutorials, and I'm going to start uploading videos directly to Patreon, which means that for patrons, you will be able to watch them ad-free via Patreon, whereas if you watch it on YouTube, it will have ads. Of course, please do watch the ads. That's actually how I get quite a bit of my income, quite a bit. That's how I get some income. It's not a lot. Literally, I think I make $20 a month in YouTube ad revenues. Yeah, it's not very much. Not very much is shared with the creators, unfortunately. Also, you could become a YouTube member if you prefer not to do Patreon, but you want to support the channel. There is YouTube membership. There's also the super thanks button. You can always leave a tip for any of the videos of mine that you think are worthy of financial support. Otherwise, if you just want to support my channel, but you don't necessarily have the funds to do so, remember to hit the thumbs up. Remember to leave a comment. And if you just don't skip the ads, I actually get a lot more money from YouTube if you don't skip the ads than if you do skip the ads. Free way to give me more money. Anyway, I know, it's a crude topic, money, it really is. But the amount of time that these videos take, I need to get something out of it, or I won't be able to continue doing it for very much longer, everyone. Okay, well, I see no further questions or comments, which means probably when I go to hit disconnect, there will probably be more questions and comments. Anyway, I will be tomorrow on my travel channel. I have a live video on my Chiang Mai, Thailand adventure. So I'll be talking about what we did, what we saw, what we ate, a little bit of the history, and also providing tips for anyone who might be interested in traveling to Thailand themselves and seeing the beauty that is northern Thailand, the former Lana Kingdom. So that's on my Travels with the Contessa channel tomorrow at 10 a.m. Korean Standard Time, which will be 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time as a frame of reference. Okay, everyone. Well, thank you all for joining, for anyone who is still there. And otherwise, I hope you all stay creative. And until next time, everyone, thank you for watching. Bye. Oh, and now my left leg is asleep. That's fun.